Welcome to the Rap Soul Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of music that moves our hearts and gets our feet tapping. This is the intersection of rap and soul music from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We appreciate you for listening. Share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. The podcast is hosted by 12 Kyle. Next up, the Rap Soul Podcast.
Welcome to another edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. I am your host, 12 Kyle. If you found this podcast via the internet, thank you and welcome. If you found this podcast because a friend recommended it to you, thank you and welcome. If you found this podcast because somebody wrote it on the bathroom wall, thank you and welcome. Again, this is the Rap Soul Podcast. This is the intersection of hip hop, rap, soul, and R&B from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. This is the best music podcast that you've never heard until right now. You see the title, When Did Hip Hop Die? Just for the record, I don't necessarily know that hip hop as you know it is dead, but the hip hop that I knew and I grew up on is dead, and I'll explain why. I came to this idea for this particular episode a few months ago. I was on the phone chopping it up with the homies, Uncle Dolomite from the Too Much Game podcast. Make sure you check him out. And my man King Germ from the Poddin' Saved Our Marriage podcast. And we were having a discussion about hip hop and the music that we grew up on. And Uncle Dolomite said something that was very profound. He said, and I quote, "I think LL laid the first brick in the death of hip hop with I Need Love." Close quote. And it made me think, I didn't know that he did. And I don't think that, started the evolution of the death of hip hop, but it was a very poignant point. And I made a mental note to, come back and talk about it. And after our conversation, I thought about it. I was like, you know what? He might have a point. Now, at the time that I Need Love came out, that was so long ago. That was during the golden era of hip hop. But again, he didn't say that LL killed it. He just said I simply thought that LL laid the first brick in it. Those are his thoughts, not mine. And then probably a couple of days later, I got a text from my man Jay Fresh. And we were talking about rap or whatever in the text. And he mentioned Young Thug, the rapper Young Thug. And he said, quote, he has those dope bars. It's funny how an art form can deteriorate to complete trash, close quote. And I responded by saying, I knew hip hop was doing bad when I heard kids say lyrics don't matter. I don't listen for words, just the beats, close quote. And I thought about it for a second. I was like, even that conversation that Jay Fresh and I had, like, it really made me think, like, if you think that it's all about the beat, then, and you're not paying attention to the lyrics, then yeah, rap probably is dead. Hip hop probably is dead. And then I went back and I listened to an old episode of my other podcast, the main podcast, the 12 Kyle podcast. If you're not up on it, check it out. Subscribe over there as well. I put this particular episode out, I want to say it was March 14th, 2019, right? And it was called The Things That Almost Killed Hip Hop in the 90s. And I listened to that episode and then I still had like this thought in my head. So did it die? And if so, when did it die? And what killed hip hop? At least for me. I knew you'd ask. So here's why I think it was killed. And these are no particular order. Number one, the internet. Man, talk about a double-edged sword. The internet for hip hop has truly been the gift and the curse. never has it been so easy for you to get your music heard. You know, if I make a dope beat in this room right here, I can put it on my Twitter page. I can put it on my YouTube page. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I could put it everywhere, and I didn't spend any money. I didn't waste any time pressing records. I didn't have to get any studio time, anything like that. I just did it in my room. Didn't really have a lot. The only thing that I spent was time. But people in North Nowhere could actually hear that beat that I made. And, you know, that's a far cry from where music once was, where you had to, you know, go in a studio, you had to record, you had to press it up on vinyl, you had to shop it, you had to beg people to play your records, you had to, you know, play it in the clubs, all of that other stuff. I bypassed everything just by producing it myself and uploading it to my computer and putting it on a social media platform and sharing it with the world. And if it generates money, guess who gets the money? Me. So the internet has truly been the double-edged sword because it allowed you to reach the masses without going through certain steps. So you really went from, instead of from A to B to C, you went from A to LMNOP. It was just that simple. And so, you know, times really changed because having a record and a record deal back then, back in the day, and let's just say in the golden era, that was a big thing. You know, you had to work for it. You just couldn't just step into the game. But the internet provided a bypass of all of that. And so being able to reach the masses in a very short period of time, also not having to pay dues, was a game changer. But the flip side also, I think, of the internet was its ability or inability to do certain things. The one thing that I do know that the internet did kill as far as hip hop was concerned was one of its number one assets. And one of the number one assets that you have in hip hop is the anticipation of an album. The idea of, hey, this album is coming out November 21st. So there was a rush. There was a belief that if I go to the record store, I get there early, I can get it. I can take it back to my room, listen to it. It was a process. You were totally invested in the process of music. You had to leave your house. You had to get in a car or catch the bus or catch the train to your local record store or Sam Goody or Best Buy or wherever, the mall, purchase that CD or tape and listen to it. And if it was good, you'd listen to it for a long time. If it wasn't good, then you'd probably be upset because you wasted your money on this CD or tape that really wasn't that good. But that was the anticipation of it. And like I said, it was a process. And I remember like when back in the day, a single would come out before the album came out. And you might have to wait, I don't know, a month, maybe a month and a half before the album actually came out. Maybe two. Now we seemingly get 2 or 3 singles before the album even comes out. And then you wait a few weeks. And then sometimes the anticipation is as simple as your favorite rapper putting up a 30-second Instagram reel on Instagram, and you hear the beat in the background and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Or they say on Wednesday, they announced that a new album is coming out Friday at midnight. And you only have to wait 48 hours. And there's really no anticipation with that. So that kind of taking that element out of it, I think is one of hip hop's biggest assets is you don't necessarily look forward to music anymore. At least I don't. I mean, I could be the old guy in the room. In fact, I might be the old guy in the room because I am. That being said, there's no anticipation about anything. And so when the music does come, if it's not to your satisfaction, people just move on. Number 2, the death of the mixtape. I think that definitely aided in the death of hip hop. I knew it was over for hip hop when DJ Drama and other DJs got arrested by the feds for selling mixtapes. Mixtapes used to be where you could get an exclusive song by one of your favorite artists or exclusive verses that you didn't hear anywhere else on anybody else's tape. And you would get real freestyles, not these things that people wrote at home and then went to the studio and spit over somebody else's beat. And it was nothing that was recycled. But the mixtape era was a great era. And it was another era that allowed you to hear some of your favorite artists, sometimes on new beats, sometimes with new rhymes. And you could hear it and really get engulfed in whatever they were talking about. And then sometimes it was a situation where they were previewing new music for an album that was forthcoming. And those were good times. But when the mixtapes went away and the feds got involved and said this was copyright infringement and all of this other stuff, that was part of the death of hip hop. Things really changed. You couldn't go on a Friday to your local neighborhood spot, whatever spot that would be, whether it be a barbershop or a swap meet or wherever, and get your favorite mixtapes. I had them all, man. From DJ Clue to Ron G to Kid Capri, I had my favorites. But mixtapes, the death of mixtapes really changed a lot. And it was part of the death of hip hop for me. Number 3, no balance. When you looked across the board in hip hop, particularly what you saw on TV or heard on the radio, there was no balance. It was either this or that. Like there was no in between. And for whatever reason, everybody got hard all of a sudden. It was no more fun. And I'll give you an example. In 1988, in my opinion, the greatest year in hip hop, we got Going Off from Biz Markie, Straight Outta Compton from NWA. He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back by Public Enemy. All 4 of those albums are polar opposites. Biz Markie, NWA, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, and Public Enemy. 4 polar opposites. But in those albums, you could get a variety of things. You could have fun. You could have silly stuff. You could have goofy stuff. You could have gangster stuff. You can have self-righteous, ready to fight the power type stuff. And that was the balance in hip hop. I mean, like you could be listening to the radio and you literally could go from one song from Humpty Hump to, Big Daddy Kane. Rap had balance. And what was pushed forward was balance. It was about, empowering yourself and empowering women like Salt and Pepper, MC Lyte, Queen Latifah, Moni Love, and the likes. And then you could get gangster with NWA or Too Short. And all of that stuff was promoted. Nothing was put to the back. And you don't see balance now in hip hop. You see one thing. Whatever that one thing is, whatever that hot trend is, these record labels, these executives, these radio stations They truly believe in riding that particular wave until it crashes. And guess what? Once that wave crashes, they'll go get a new wave. Because a new wave is coming. It's always a new wave coming. But yeah, rap had balance. There's no balance anymore. It's not even close to having any balance anymore. And we as fans have ourselves to blame. Because there was a point in time where we commanded that there be balance. There's no balance anymore. Everything, not everything, but most things tend to look, feel, and sound the same. And it's affected the music. And subsequently, it's affected the generation that came behind us. And I don't blame that generation totally. I blame us too, to some degree, because we let it happen. And now that the cat's out of the bag, there's nothing you can do. I mean, you can stand on your hill and point the finger at them and be mad at them, but what good does that do? They're the future. Why be mad at the future? But no, hip hop, it was slowly ticking away. And I just gave you 3 reasons as to why. Sit tight. We're going to take a commercial break. And after the break, I'll come back and I'll give you 3 more reasons. Sit tight. We'll be back in just a second. Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. And just like that, we are back. Once again, it's your boy 12 Kyle. This is the Rap Soul Podcast. And we're talking about, why did hip hop die? And before the break, I gave you a couple of examples. I'll give you a few more before we get out of here. As I mentioned before the break, there's a few things. Let me give you another one. Number 4. And again, these are in no particular order. Number 4. Simply put, there was too much music. That was one of the reasons why hip hop died. It's too much music. This is about quantity. People wanted more and more music. And when you want something so much in demand, you want the quantity, but the quality falls off. And the quality of hip hop fell off a cliff. Like, it wasn't even close. Honestly, some people can put out music relatively quickly. And some do it very well. And then some want to bombard people with music just for the sake of saying, hey, we got an album out. But if you look at, and I keep going back to the golden era, they didn't make music like that not because there wasn't a demand, but, they wanted you to, when they presented something to you, they wanted you to savor it. Like if you go eat a steak, you get yourself a nice steak. You don't cut the steak up and eat it all fast, right? You want to savor every piece of that steak. And the same goes for hip hop. You would get albums from your favorite artists in doses. You didn't get a bunch of albums all the time. So if your favorite artist dropped an album in 1988, there's a good chance that you probably wouldn't get another album from them for another 3, maybe 4 years. No earlier than 2 years. You weren't dropping another album in a year. That wasn't happening. But it gave you a chance to miss them. It gave you a chance to appreciate the art that they put in your hands, that you paid for. So again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, you have an investment. So now that you have the investment, you're not going to throw the investment away, because what? You just got this investment. And you're going to take care of it, and you're going to live with it and you're going to love on it because that's what you do. But if you're giving them the music all the time, there's a lack of appreciation for it. You know, nowadays, if you don't have 2 albums, 5 mixtapes, and 10 guest appearances a year, you're slipping and people are going to forget you. You know, at least that's what they say. This attempt to keep up with the high turnover rate of music has cheapened the music. Now you have regular mixtapes that are, you know, marketed as albums, and it's just a bunch of songs to get thrown together just for the hell of it. Like, you know, not a lot of thought put into it. You know, and I know you got to do what you got to do to survive these days, but, you know, the rush to stay in the public eye shouldn't affect the music the way that it has. In essence, the music has really become watered down. And that's unfortunate because we have a generation now that thinks that this is the model to follow. It's really not. Not for longevity, not for career longevity. You know, because they think if you get out of sight, then you're going to lose your fans. That's not the case. Not if your fans are really, really here for you. You don't necessarily have to put out new music. You know, if you got great content, your fans will keep coming back to your stuff because they dig you, not the wave that you're trying to ride. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, too much music. And I mean, like, it's no different. And I've used this analogy before, and I think it fits here. It's like going to a buffet. You go to a buffet, you see all the food there. You can't eat it all, you know, but you don't really appreciate it either. Because you got 7 different types of chicken, and you got steak, and you got ribs, and you got corn, and you got rice, you got peas, you got candy yams, you got everything. When you get to that whole thing of food, you're looking at it and you don't know what you want to eat. And pretty soon you start eating, and after a while, all the food just tastes the same. And that's how this music has become. It's about all the same. Number 5, something that I've talked about before, and it's definitely worth repeating: too many features. If you know me, you know I'm not a fan of a bunch of features on an album. I think it waters down the album. I've actually seen fans on social media speak down on a particular album because it didn't have enough features. You know, I mean, like, I think that's just whack. Like, you're coming to my album because you want to hear me. It's almost like you want, like, I'm having a party and I'm inviting you to my party. And the first question you say, hey, well, who's going to be there? Is Eclectic coming? Is Dolomite coming? Is Baylor coming? Is Zell coming? Is Derek coming? Is Dr. Jamel coming? You know, like, is Jay Boog coming? Is Autumn coming? Like, everybody's asking, but wait a second. It's my party, remember? I invited you. It's not about everybody else. They may show up, but I'm not promoting the fact that they're showing up because the party is about me. It's my party. I want you to come kick it with me. And we've lost sight of that, man. It's just, it's way overboard now. And I'll let you guys on a little secret. Hey, kids, it wasn't always this way. There was a time where there were no guest features on anybody's album, unless you were in the crew. If you were in the crew, you could probably get a guest feature. Other than that, no. Outside the crew, hell no. Because one, MCs didn't want to battle or have someone else show them up on their album. And then 2, you know, it's the awkwardness of it. Why do my record should stand on its own merit? Why do I need you? I mean, that's a question that we ask daily. Do you need this person on your record? But, you know, we see albums with a bunch of guest features. I remember many years ago, J. Cole, the rapper J. Cole, came out with an album and it didn't have any features and people got mad at him. I'm like, his album shouldn't have any features. You should only care that it's just J. Cole. Personally, anything past 2, maybe 3 features on an album, nah, man, your album's a compilation. And I definitely don't want to hear an album with you and you got a guest feature on every song. That's an album I'm probably not going to listen to, honestly. Because again, I came to your party to see you. I don't care who's at the party. The thing is, I'm at the party and it's your party, so I came to see you. So that's all that matters. Whoever else shows up, it doesn't matter. But, you know, it's different now. It's just totally different now. And even back then, you know, when we didn't have the technology that we had, even if you had somebody on your album, you got a chance to spend time with them in the studio and build and got to be down and, you know, become crew and everything like that. You know, because of technology, that doesn't happen anymore. You know, I've actually heard people say they've been asked the question, well, what was it like with such and such in the studio as you guys created this song? Oh, well, he didn't make it to the studio. I told him what I needed. He sent the beat over and I rhymed on it. I sent it back to him. And, you know, this is what we got. That's whack, man. Why can't you come kick it in the studio and we work on this thing together? I mean, anybody could do that. I mean, that's like me having a podcast episode. And I'm like, yeah, man, just email me your responses. Here are the questions right here. I'm gonna send you the questions. You just put and I'll chop it up and put it in there. No, man, that's terrible. But I mean, this is where we are. And another reason why I think hip hop died is the obvious. Money. Once money got involved, the game flipped. You know, there was a time where money really didn't matter. This was the time where an artist really was solely focused on honing their craft, doing their thing, getting airplay on the radio, a novel concept, and just shining and wanting the props for being dope. And that went away. Once the money got involved, and I get it, man, but it was way too much money. It was way too much money not to care. And again, I'm not somebody who says that you should turn down money because I don't turn down any money. But all money ain't good money either. You got to remember that. But once the money got involved, it was just really too big for artists not to put everything into it because of the money. And especially getting a lot of the money up front, it took away from some of the artists' hunger. And also, it also made the labels very cutthroat as well, because that meant if you didn't sell, we've invested this money into you. If you don't sell, you out of here. And you get dropped from the label. And that's where we were for a long time. And so the money definitely changed things. So what I'm saying is, in conclusion, there's a lot of things that killed hip hop for me. And again, I got to say for me, because there are going to be some people that read the headline of this particular episode and say, oh, hip hop ain't dead. You know, Nas came out with that song, Hip Hop is Dead. Hip hop ain't dead. Hip hop will live forever. Hip hop in its infancy grew to be something that was so beautiful, and it's still growing. But the core of what hip hop was, to me, died a long time ago. And I'll be honest, it took a minute for me to come to grips with where hip hop was and where I was and where I fit in that particular equation of hip hop. Because I'm literally someone who saw it grow as a baby into a young adult, into a grown person. I am 9 months older than hip hop. And so I've been around. I can't tell you I know every song. I can't tell you that I know every artist, but I know a little bit about a lot when it comes to hip hop. You know this. But yeah, it's not it ain't what it was. And for me, it died a long time ago. And again, I had to figure out where I stood in its death and how I was going to move forward with what I was presented with to go forward. And that's not to say that I don't listen to the music of today, because I do. Not a lot of it, but I do. But every now and then, I'll listen to something and it'll be appeasing. And sometimes I'll listen to something and it'll blow me away. But that era in which I grew up and listening to music, hip hop in particular, that era ain't coming back. And I'm okay with that. I've come to grips with it, and I've understood that it's okay that it's no longer here. Because one, I'm here, and two, I still have access to that music, so I can always resurrect it by pressing play. So that goes back to the question that I initially asked. Did it die? Yes and no. For most people, they may say no. For others, they'll say yes. For me, it did. But again, I'm okay with it, because anytime I want to bring it back to life, all I got to do is press play. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thank you for checking out this edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. This is a weekly podcast. Again, this is the intersection of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s when it comes to rap and soul music, hip hop, and R&B music. Again, I am your boy 12 Kyle. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast. We have a Reddit page. So if you'd like to take this conversation from here over to our Reddit page, feel free to do so. We have a YouTube channel. If you want to watch this episode, you can do that there as well. Subscribe as well. The great thing about the YouTube channel is that we have not only the video, but we have audio as well. If you're on social media, Rap Soul Podcast across the board, on Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, we're there. And if you want to contribute to the show financially, hit us up on Cash App, $TWELVEKYLE. Yeah, come back, because again, this is a weekly podcast. This is a very new venture that I have. And I'm having a lot of fun doing this. So I definitely appreciate you all for tuning in. Again, that's going to do it for me. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5 G's.
Thank you for listening. This concludes the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the podcast on social media. And feel free to continue this discussion on our Reddit page. More importantly, share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. Until next time, 5,000.